immunoagglutination and immunoprecipitation.
This call is now being recorded.
So, uh, first of all, we will discuss about the strength of the antigen antibody interactions. Okay, so the strength of the antigen antibody interaction, it uh, can be described by two ways. So one is called affinity, and second one is called avidity. AFFINITY, affinity, and avidity, AVIDITY, avidity. These two things are there. So first thing that we are discussing is the affinity. So what is affinity? The affinity, it is the combined strength of non-covalent interaction between a single antigen binding site to an antibody and a single epitope is the affinity, okay, of the antibody. That means here, what we are talking is that this is a combined strength of non-covalent interaction. So, yes, sir. So, it is a strength of non-covalent interaction. That means here, the antigen antibody interaction, this is not a covalent interaction. This is a non-covalent interaction. That means non-covalent means it includes various other bonds or various other interactions like hydrophobic interaction, polar interaction, van der Waals interactions. All these interactions are there. So this disulfide bond, all these things are not involved. So no covalent bonds are involved between the antigen and antibody. Okay. Then this is the interaction between the single antigen binding site on an antibody. So you know that the antigen binding site, it is present in the FAB portion. If we have this antibody, so at this portion you have an antigen binding site. We have discussed earlier, that is called complementarity determining site that binds the antigen. Okay, single antigen binding site on an antibody and a single epitope, because the antibody does not bind the whole antigen, it binds only a part of antigen, that is called epitope. Okay, so it is if I just use the whiteboard, so what it means is that, so this is the, you can say, antigen. This antigen has got many epitopes. So these are various epitopes present in the antigen. Okay, and then here when you're talking about the affinity, so you have, this is the antibody. Okay, so this portion we call it FC portion, and this portion which we call FAB portion. FAB portion. So FAB portion, at this part and at this position, you have a site that is called complementarity determining site, or CDR. So that actually binds the epitope. Actually, antigen antibody reaction, this is a misnomer. It should be epitope antibody reaction, because antibody binds to the epitope, not the whole antigen. So here what happens? So one antibody, so this is the antibody. Okay, now this antibody has bound to this epitope, this particular epitope. Okay, through the antigen binding site. So it is, so this portion is the antigen binding site of the antibody. Okay, so now affinity means with how much affinity this particular site of the antibody is binding to this particular epitope. So one epitope and one antigen binding site. What is the affinity? That is, so that is called affinity. So here, when we talk about the affinity of an antigen antibody, we are talking about one epitope and one antigen binding site. Okay. Now, mathematically, how it is uh, described. So this is the antigen. plus antibody. When they react, so they form the antigen antibody complex. So this reaction is a reversible reaction. Okay, so rate in which the antigen and antibody binds to form the antigen antibody complex, so that rate is, it is denoted as K1. So K1 is the rate at which the antigen and antibody they bind. Okay, and K minus 1, it is a reverse reaction. So that is the rate at which the antigen gets dissociated from the antibody. So that is K minus 1. Now we use one term that is called association constant. Association association constant. So that is what is the Ka. So Ka is equal to K1 divided by K minus 1, or the Ka can also be defined in this particular formula. So Ka is equal to concentration of antigen and antibody complex, okay, and the concentration of free antibody and free antigen. Okay, so the Ka is inversely proportional to the concentration of free antibody and free antigen, and directly proportional to antigen antibody complex. Okay, so that means if you are using an antigen and antibody, if you add them together, okay, now in your solution, okay, if you have more amount of antigen antibody complex, that means the Ka value is high. So Ka is an indication of the affinity. Or on the other hand, if you have free antibody and free antigen, okay, so in that case also it means that the if you have less amount of antibody, free antibody, and less amount of free antigen, so Ka will be high. Okay. So the low affinity antigen antibody complex, okay, have a Ka value ranging from 10 power 4 to 10 power 5. So when this value is 10 power 4, 10 power 5, so this kind of antigen antibody complexes, these are called low affinity complexes. And the value more than 10 power minus 11, the Ka value more than 10 power 11, more than 10 power 11. So these are called high affinity antigen antibody complexes. Okay. Now the strength of the if we just look into this particular statement, what it says, the affinity of an antigen of one binding site does not always reflect the true strength of the antigen antibody interaction. When complex antigen contains multiple repeating antigenic determinants are mixed with the antibodies containing multiple binding sites, the interaction of an antibody molecule with an antigen at one site will increase the probability of the reaction between those two molecules at a second site. Now, what we mean is that in practical situations, what happens, because in an antigen, you have multiple epitopes and all epitopes are different. Okay, so here the affinity does not play any role. What role is played is that what is the combined strength of different epitopes to a different antigens. Okay, so what it says is that if you just look into the next statement that says that the interaction of an antibody molecule with an antigen molecule at one site will increase the probability of the reaction between those two molecules at second site. So that means what we mean is that when this particular antibody has bound, okay, this antibody has bound, now the antigen binding to this antibody binding to this particular epitope, okay, once it is bound, so then the next antibody that will bind to this particular epitope, this probability becomes more. Okay, it's a kind of chain reaction. When you have a antigen, so when you have an antigen having multiple epitopes, so one epitope is bound by the antibody. Okay, Now, once it is bound, so what happens? These epitopes, okay, their binding to their antibody becomes, the possibility becomes more. That means what it says is that it is just like a sigmoid curve. So initially, the first antibody finds it difficult to bind, okay, but once it binds, then it brings about some kind of conformational changes, and then these epitopes, they get exposed or something like this. So you have, this is a uh, antigen bound by one antibody. Now these epitopes, they will be opened, they will be exposed more, and as a result, these epitopes will be bound by the other antibodies easily. So binding of second antibody to the second epitope in an antigen, it becomes easier once it is, the first epitope is bound. Okay, so that is what the second statement says. So now in this case, what happens, because there is no antigen which has got only one epitope, majority of the antigen has got different epitopes. Okay, so in that case, there is no point in talking about affinity. We'll have to talk about uh, affinity of all the combined affinity of all the epitopes. So strength of multiple interaction between a multivalent antibody and an antigen is called avidity. So here the term comes avidity. So affinity talks about the interaction between one epitope and one antigen binding site. Okay. Now in this case, the avidity talks about combined affinity of different epitopes and different antibodies in a solution. Okay, so in this case, we are talking about multivalent antibody. Now, what is multivalent antibody? That means it is a mixture of the antibody, okay, that are specific for different epitopes. That means in this case, let me remove this. Say for example, we have, this is a antigen, and then say this is one epitope, this is one epitope, then this is one epitope, and then say this is one epitope, and this is one epitope. Okay, so now here you have 1 2 3 4 5, you have 5 different epitopes in this particular antigen. Okay, so then in a multivalent antibody means you have a mixture of antibody that are specific for these 5 different epitopes. Say for example, you have one antibody in your mixture that is specific for the first epitope. Then you have the second antibody that is specific for the second epitope. You have third antibody, okay, specific for the third epitope. So likewise, you have fourth and fifth antibody, okay, specific for these epitopes. Okay, so here we are not talking about affinity of one antibody and one epitope. We are talking about affinity of combined affinity of all these epitopes with all these different antibody. Okay, so something like this, if you have affinity, that means the affinity is the combination of all the affinities of different epitopes with the different antibodies. Okay, so avidity you cannot express in case of monoclonal antibody. Supposing that in your solution you have only one type of antibody. Say you have only the antibodies, okay, that are specific for only this epitope number 1. So in this case, you cannot think about the avidity, because here we are not talking about, because here we are not concerned about all the epitopes, because all the epitopes with their antibodies are not available. So here, as a name, as it says, a multivalent antibodies. Multivalent means antibodies specific for different epitopes. But here, this is not a multivalent antibody, because here we have antibodies specific for only one epitope. So this should not be the case. Rather, it should be the case that we should have the mixture of antibodies specific for different epitopes. So here only we can talk about the avidity. Okay. So avidity of an antibody is better measure of its binding capacity within a biological system, okay, than the affinity of its individual binding site. So now what it says, the avidity of an antibody is better measure of binding capacity within a biological system, because in a biological system you will not get any antigen, okay, in the natural cases you will not get any antigen, that is bacteria or virus, that has got only one epitope. They have multiple epitopes. When they have multiple epitopes, okay, then you will be having the multiple antibodies specific for those epitopes. So there is no question of talking about affinity. We'll have to talk about the avidity. Okay. So avidity is the combined affinity of all the epitopes and their respective antibodies. So here I'm taking an example. IgM has less affinity than IgG, but has higher avidity. Now, if you just look into the structure of the IgM antibody, so it is, you know, that it is a pentavalent. So it is a pentavalent antibody, and IgG is monovalent. That means only one antibody. So this is your pentameric IgM. Okay, and this one is the monomeric IgG. So now here we are saying that the affinity of the IgM is less. That means individual the binding affinity of the individual binding site with its epitope is generally less as compared to IgG. Okay, but avidity of the IgM is more than IgG. Why? It is because the IgM has got more number of antigen binding site. Say this is one antigen binding site, this is one antigen binding site. Okay, so as a whole, the IgM antibody, it is a combination of 5 antibodies, so it is a pentameric. So that means as a whole it has got 10 numbers of antigen binding site. So it has got 10 numbers of antigen binding site, while in case of IgM it has only 2 numbers of antigen binding site. Okay, so since the number of antigen binding site in the IgG is less and here it is more, that is why the avidity is high. So avidity of the IgM antibody is higher than IgG. Okay, so that is why, because in the primary immune response IgM is produced, the secondary immune response only IgG is produced. So why IgM is required? Because IgM is required so that all the antigens are captured. So you have an antigen and you have an antibody. Okay, so in solution or in serum or wherever it is, so they should be able to bind. Okay, so they should be able to bind. But if suppose primary immune response also you have less number of antigens, okay, and then you are using the IgG antibody, so the chances of encountering antibody and the antigen will be less. Okay, now what happens in case of pentameric IgM? Pentameric IgM, here what will happen, you have less number of antigen as earlier, but since the antigen binding sites are more, so possibility of catching the antigen is higher. Something like this, that if I just throw a ball to you, So you are having only 2 hands. So you will just hold it like this. Okay. On the other hand, if I do something that now you have got 10 hands, if I just throw the ball to you, so possibility of catching the ball will be better than earlier. Okay, because earlier you had only 2 hands, so only 2 hands you will catch the ball, so there is every possibility that many times you will miss the ball. But if I just do something and you have a 10 number of hands, now possibility of missing the balls will be less. So it is something like that. So that is why the ability of the IgM is higher, because it has got higher number of antigen binding site. Again, if we compare IgG and IgA, same, IgA is a dimeric antibody. Dimeric antibody means again it has got higher number of antigen binding site as compared to IgG. IgG has got only 2 antigen binding site, and this one they have got 4 antigen binding site, because 2 antibody they are like this. Okay, so one here and one here, so 1, 2, and 3, 4. Okay. Now we talk about the cross reactivity. So although antigen antibody reactions are highly specific, in some cases antibody elicited by one antigen can cross react with an unrelated antigen. That means many times what happens, say they have 2 different antigens. Okay, fine. So these 2 different antigens, okay, they should not cross react, but many times they cross react. Why they cross react? So cross reaction, it happens because of presence of the common epitope. Say for example, this is one antigen, and we have, this is the second antigen. Now they have their antigenic structures are different. I mean, they have got different epitopes. Okay. Now here, this one also, it has got different types of epitopes. All epitopes are different. Okay. But here, supposing that so if you see, this red epitope and this one, so these 2 epitopes, this one and this one, their structures are similar. So in that case, what will happen? These 2 antigens, they will cross react because they have got similar, at least one similar epitopes. Okay. So if you use the polyclonal antibody means antibody specific for all the epitopes of an antigen. Okay. So in that case, this polyclonal antibody, okay, they will cross react. So you have polyclonal antibody that will react with this, and the same polyclonal antibody will also react with this. So that leads to cross reactivity. Okay. So this is common in some viruses also. If we take some viruses and use ELISA for their detection, so many times you find that different viruses, they show the similar reaction. So that is what we call cross reaction. So this is quite evident in case of viruses belonging to the same genus. Okay. But in this case, this kind of problems of the cross reactivity, it can be solved by using the monoclonal antibody. So monoclonal antibody means these are the homogeneous mixture of the antibody which are specific for a specific epitope. So for example, if you are diagnosing this particular antigen, then your antibody mixture should be specific for at least this or this epitope. So these 3 epitopes are not present in this green antigen. Okay, fine. So we take the antibody this specific for only one epitope. So that is your monoclonal antibody, and that will reduce the problem of the cross reactivity. So cross reactivity is often observed in the polysaccharide antigens that contain similar oligosaccharide residues. So polysaccharide antigen like Streptococcus pneumoniae and all, so their cross reactivity is quite common, and This is common also in case of viruses of same genus, and also it is quite common with the polysaccharide antigens because they commonly share the similar epitopes. Now we talk about the precipitation reactions. Okay, so here if you just see this definition, the antibody and the soluble antigen interacting in an aqueous solution form a lattice. Okay, that eventually so the antibody and soluble antigen interacting with an aqueous solution form a lattice that eventually develops into a visible precipitate. Now here we are talking about a soluble antigen. Now what is meant by soluble antigen? So antibody and antigen, both of them can be soluble or insoluble. So just we'll just discuss briefly what is meant by soluble antigen and insoluble antigen. So first of all, let us talk about soluble antibody and we talk about the soluble antibody. Okay, so soluble antibody are those antibodies, okay, which are secreted, okay, which are present in the free form. So these antibodies, they circulate in the serum, okay, so they are water soluble. So these are called secretory antibodies, which are secreted secretory antibodies. Now insoluble antibodies, so antibodies which are bound to the membrane of a cell. So these are called these are called insoluble antibodies. So generally these are bound to the immature B cells or in the memory cells. So memory B cells or immature B cells, on their cell membrane, cell surface, the antibodies are bound. These are called insoluble antibodies because they are bound to the cells. Okay. Now same thing when we are talking about the soluble antigen. So same thing is there. The soluble antigen means, so okay, now in case of insoluble antibody, so they are also called membrane bound antibody, also called membrane bound antibody. Now we discuss about the soluble antigen. So soluble antigen and we talk about the insoluble antigen. So soluble antigen means the protein antigens, okay, which are soluble in water. Okay, so the antigens which are not linked, which are not connected to any bigger molecule. So these are called, so these can be called as soluble antigens, so which are soluble in, so as the name indicates, they are soluble in water. On the other hand, the insoluble antigens are the antigens which are present on the surface of the cell. It may be a bacterial cell, it may be a fungal cell, it may be a virus. Okay, this is the bigger molecules, so which are present on their surface. So these molecules, so the epitopes or the antigens, so these epitopes, they are present on their surface. Okay, so now in this case, this complete cell, it may be a bacterial cell, virus, or fungal cell, or a mammalian cell, it can be called an insoluble antigen. The cell as a whole is an antigen, insoluble antigen, which is not soluble in water. Okay, and when you just kill the cell and you just separate their antigenic parts, separate their epitopes, so this becomes a soluble antigen. Now when we are talking about precipitation, so in this case, we are talking about the antibodies and antigens, both are soluble. It should be a soluble antigen and soluble antibody interacting in the aqueous solution to form a lattice that eventually develops a visible precipitate. Lattice means, say for example, so these are the antibodies. Okay, fine. And then you have the, sorry, these are the antigens and you have the antibody. So this antibody is a secretory antibody, or you can say it is a soluble antibody, and you have the soluble antigens. Okay, now every antigen, okay, they have some epitopes. Okay, so their epitopes are there. Okay, now these group of antibodies, they will bind this epitope. So how they are going to bind the epitope? Say, for example, this is an antigen, soluble antigen. Okay, this antigen has got one epitope here. Okay, now this epitope is bound by one antigen, one antibody. Then again, here you have another antigen molecule. So this part of the antigen binding site will bind this particular epitope. Okay, fine. So now this is how the antigens they bind. Okay, now let me draw a bigger picture. So that means you have one antibody will bind two epitopes. So when one antibody binds two epitopes, so it forms a precipitate. How it will form the precipitate, I'll show you here. Yeah, so here you see, this is one antibody binding to this particular epitope. The same antibody is binding to the second epitope of the second antigen. Okay, now this antigen has got another epitope. Okay, and this epitope is bound by this antibody, and same epitope is present in this antibody. So in this antigen, this will be bound by this particular antibody. Okay, so again here another epitope is there, which is bound by this third antibody. Okay, so likewise, what will happen? This will form a bigger lump-like structure. So initially in your solution, you had the soluble antibody, okay, and you had the soluble antigen. So both are soluble in water. Now, when you did the antigen-antibody reaction, what happens? So one antigen binding site of one antibody will bind one epitope here, okay, and this one will bind the epitope present over here. Then this antibody will bind the epitope present over here in this antigen, and this one will bind the epitope present in this particular antigen. So this is how it will form a complex like structure. So one kind of complex will be formed. This is called lattice. Okay, now this kind of lattice is having more density. Now what is the meaning of suspension and solution? Okay, so when any kind of molecule has density less than water, okay, so it will form solution. And when the molecules have density more than water, so in that case it will precipitate. So now the antibody, okay, their density is less than water, and antigen also their density is less than water. That's why they are soluble. Okay, but the lattice, which you form a complex, a big molecule, many antigen, many antibodies, they will form this kind of lattice. When they form this kind of lattice, so this kind of lattice has got bigger structure. That means their size is bigger and they have got higher density. So their density is more than water. As a result, this lattice, it will settle down. Okay, so because of that, this lattice will settle down, and that's what we call precipitation. So the antibodies that aggregate soluble antigens. So in this case, so I have shown you how the antibodies, they aggregate the antigens. You have different antigens, so they are aggregated by the antibody molecules. So this aggregate, it is, so this kind of antibodies, they are called precipitants. Okay, and then when this kind of lattice occurs, so then they settle down into the bottom of the tube. Okay, that is called precipitate. That's why we are using this word visible precipitate. So antibody and the soluble antigen interacting in an aqueous solution form a lattice that eventually develops into a visible precipitate. So it will settle down to the bottom of the tube. Okay, that is visible as precipitate. So formation of antigen antibody lattice depends upon the valency of both the antibody and the antigen. Okay, so that means valency means what? The antibody is, they are called multivalent. Multivalent means, say the IgG. IgG has got two numbers of the antigen binding site, so it is called bivalent. Now the IgA is tetravalent. Two antibody, two antibody. It has got two numbers of this antigen binding site. So it has got two valence. So it has got four valency. Now the antibody must be bivalent. A precipitate will not form with the monovalent Fab fragment. What it means is that, so your antibody, it should be bivalent. Bivalent means at least it should have two numbers of antigen binding site. Then only one site will bind with the epitope of one antigen, and another site will bind with the epitope of another antibody. It should be bivalent. Okay. On the other hand, if you have there are some methods by which we can separate the Fab fragments. Supposing that what you have done is that you have only the Fab fragments of the antibody. So in that case, lattice will not form. These fragments will bind the epitope. Okay, but these two epitopes, these two antigens, they will not be combined. Okay, earlier it was combined because it was in one antibody. But since they are not in one antibody now, they are different Fab fragments. So this kind of it is called Fab fragment. So Fab fragment will not form the precipitation. Okay, then the antigen must be either bivalent or polyvalent. That is, it must have at least two copies of the same epitope or have different epitope that react with the different antibodies. Now you see, this is also important point. The antigen must be either bivalent or polyvalent. Now you see, if we just look into this particular this diagram, what you find is that just look into this particular antigen. This particular antigen. So it has got this red color one epitope and blue color one epitope. So if this particular antigen has got only one type of epitope, or it has got only one epitope, what will happen? This second antibody will not be able to bind this antigen. Now, this antigen is bound by this antibody as well as this antibody. But in this, that is why it is forming the precipitation. It is forming the precipitate. On the other hand, if this antibody has only one epitope here, no other epitope, so then this kind of antigen also will not lead to formation of precipitation. So they must have more than one epitope. Okay. So that means this kind of precipitate, okay, it will not form in case of monoclonal antibody. If you use the monoclonal antibodies, because monoclonal antibody means they are specific for only one type of epitope. So in that case, this is a monoclonal antibody that is binding to one epitope only. Now the second epitope is not bound by any antibody because you have only one type of antibody. Okay, so then the monoclonal antibody never forms the precipitate. Okay, now next type of reaction is the agglutination reaction. So agglutination, it is an interaction between the antibody and a particular particulate antigen, okay, results in visible clumping, is called agglutination. Okay, now we need to understand what is meant by particulate antigen. So particulate antigen means when the antigen is not soluble, it is insoluble. So insoluble antigen is also called particulate antigen. Say for example, bacterial cell. A complete bacterial cell can be called as a particulate antigen. Okay, so in this case, it is just like here the phenomenon is similar to that of the precipitation reaction. But in this case, in the precipitation reaction, you have the soluble antibody and soluble antigen. In this case, okay, either the antigen is not soluble, okay, or the antibody is not soluble. Okay, so here particulate, say for example, I think we have already studied about one kind of test that is commonly used in the field condition, that is called bacterial agglutination test. So bacterial agglutination test is commonly used for detection of Salmonella and Brucella. So in this case, the Salmonella or the Brucella, they act as the antigen. Okay, and then what happens in this case? Just like earlier, so you have, these are the, let's say, bacterial cells. Okay, fine. So now these bacterial cells, okay, they are, say, bound by one antibody. This particular antibody is binding this particular epitope and this particular epitope of two different cells. Again, you have different epitope here. This will be bound by another antibody. So as a result, what will happen? Different cells of bacteria, they will clump together. Okay, the clumping of the bacterial cell, it is called agglutination. So clumping occurs because of the antibodies. The antibodies brings all the bacterial cells together. This is called agglutination. So antibodies that produce such reaction are called agglutinins. So antibodies that causes precipitation, they are called precipitins, and the antibodies that cause the agglutination, these are called agglutinins. So agglutination reaction is similar in principle to the precipitation reaction. So the basic things are similar. Okay, so they also depend upon the cross-linking of polyvalent antigen. So you have an antigen that has got different types of epitopes. Okay, these different types of epitopes, they are bound by the antibodies to bring these cells together. In precipitation, the antibodies, they bring the different antigen molecules together. And here the same thing, but instead of the antigen molecules, they bring the complete cells together. They cause clumping of the cells, that we call agglutination reactions. Okay, so this is, we come to an end of this